Hey guys, welcome to Peripheral Vision, and today we're taking a look at the Sega Genesis Classic Game Console. And just to clarify, this is not actually a Sega Genesis or a Classic Game Console. It is a plug-and-play distributed by AtGames and licensed by Sega. And you can tell that it was licensed by Sega because nobody sticks the Hedgehog onto a box this many times without having their go-ahead. So what is included in this Sega Genesis Classic Game Console, which is not a Sega Genesis or a Classic Game Console? Well, according to the box, 80 built-in games, and it is compatible with Genesis cartridges. That's pretty cool. Now, if you're wondering which 80 games are built in, the box also has you covered. If you flip it over, you can see all the games. Now, there's a few at the bottom that are just random puzzle games, but for the most part, it is a who's who of classic Genesis titles, including Alex Kidd, Altered Beast, Echo the Dolphin, Columns, Ristar, Vector Man, and a number of others, as well as obviously all the Sonic games for the system. So, pretty impressive so far. Except for the fact that it's a plug-and-play. Now, plug-and-plays are notorious for having a lot of different issues and being lower quality and quick cash grabs and etc, etc. But who knows, maybe this one will surprise me. No, when it's a plug-and-play. Review over. Now I've got to review it. I've got to open it up and look inside of it. Now, before we open it up, I would like to say that this review has been brought to you by Game Traders E-Town, and they are the ones that have provided me with this thing. This plug-and-play thing. And this is available at Game Traders E-Town. If you would like to purchase it, or if you're interested in it after my review, you can go check out their Facebook page, and I will include that in the description as I always do. And as of recording this, the price that they have listed for it is $30. So I cannot quote that as being the price overall, though. But enough plugging the plug-and-play. Oh, I like that. That's pretty clever, Eric. I know. Let's open it up. If we can figure out how. Alright, pretty simple opening. And here are the contents of this. I'm just going to start calling it the Genesis Plug-and-Play. That way we have a nice, succinct little name for it. First off, we have the connectors. Very simple connections. Just a plug and composite. Now, what's cool about the composites is that they are generic, and you can find these pretty much anywhere if you lose them. What used to be in this slot, I assume, were instructions, but thankfully we don't really need instructions with this. It's very simple. And here is the main unit itself. There's the Sega Genesis logo and the AtGames logo. Now, here's where the composites would go, and here's where the power supply would go. And then you'd be all ready to play your Sega Genesis games and such. Now, when it said that you could play Sega Genesis carts, or that it was Genesis cart compatible, what it meant was that there is this little opening here that you can actually insert Sega Genesis games into. Now, one issue with that I can promise you, even without having some of the cartridges that would test it, is that this has Sega Genesis on a chip technology, so it's not actually the innards of a Sega Genesis. That is a problem because a lot of the cartridges that require some of the fancier aspects of a Sega Genesis, like bypasses, like the Sonic 3 and Knuckles black cart that you put Sega and Sonic and you guys know what I'm talking about. Bypass carts like that or the Game Genie will not work on this console, I can guarantee that. So that's a small issue. There's only a handful of games that really have excessive chip use in the Genesis library, but there are some, and they are notable. So that's something. But most traditional Genesis games will, in fact, play on it. And then we have the front here, and you see there are two controller ports. Now, the controllers that come with it are wireless, and I'll get to those in a second, but they do give you the option of using standard Sega Genesis controllers, and technically speaking, you can put in Atari controllers because they have the same pin connector, but they wouldn't really work. So, even though they fit, they won't really work that well. And then you have the wireless sensor. Now, the wireless controllers themselves, this is what they look like. They are pretty small, at least compared to a standard Genesis controller. They're pretty okay in the hands. I like nice clicking in the buttons. And then you can see there's a little light up here, which is the indicator for the wireless. And then on the back, you have batteries. Now, what's bothersome about the wireless controllers is that the battery pack is actually screwed in, so you do have to unscrew this to open it up and put batteries in, so that's kind of a hassle. Now, let me take the other one. The other one, I've actually pre-installed the batteries. I've taken out the screw, so it does have the batteries in there. And the light itself, this, where is it? The light around here, there it is, the light. When you press any of the buttons, it will flash indicating that the signal is there, or the wire, that the energy is getting into the controller, which is good. I like when wireless technology gives me an indicator light so that I know it's working, because sometimes that can be a pretty big problem. You can't really figure out what's wrong with something, but this one does. It gives you the little blinky light. Now, another thing I noticed about the wireless controllers here are you really have to be directly pointed, because this is the thing that is accepting the signal, and this part right here is what is sending the signal. And they really have to be directly in line, otherwise it will not pick up the signal from the controller. It's really finicky about that, so you have to make sure that there's nothing obstructing the signal and all that, and you can't be pointing it up or pointing to the side or anything. You have to just right at the system. So I don't really like that. I don't like that the wireless controllers even exist. There's not really... The reasoning is that it removes clutter, but personally I would, if you pick this up, I would suggest picking up a standard Genesis controller with it, just to plug it in, because it's a lot easier and a lot more reliable. So that is the total package. That's what you get with this Sega Genesis classic game console. So let's actually plug this into the TV so I can show you the menu and show you what exactly you're getting with this thing. Okay, so this is the menu for the Sega Genesis classic game console plug and play. Wow, what a mouthful. As you can see, it is split into multiple pages, 8 in total, and I like how it's got the word Fire Core for no particular reason up on the top. I don't know about that, but the first 4 pages are the actual Sega Genesis games, and these are games that were released on the system itself, so that you could go out and buy. So these are the ones that are most important in the collection. And then we have the latter 4, which are just random games, which I assume they only really put in here to bolster the numbers. So this is just to fill out that remaining 40 on the 80 and 1. So these are very unimpressive, underwhelming games. I wouldn't spend more than a few minutes on any one of them, but they are here just in case you want to check them out. But we're going to go ahead and start up one of the actual Genesis games. We'll go with Alex Kidd, a classic Sega icon, and we'll see how they look and play. So, Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle. Rookie Town. Let's hope I can survive Rookie Town. I'm going to be really embarrassed if I can't manage that. Alright, so the control works pretty well. Again, you do need that direct line, but if you have a regular Genesis controller, that won't be an issue. The sound and the appearance seem to be pretty on point. Now, I don't know what Alex Kidd looks like normally, so I can't say if it's specifically accurate. I'm going to punch a car real quick. So, worst case scenario, we've gotten through this review and I punched a car. So, I'm considering this a victory for the day. Now, I've been through, actually, besides the latter 4 pages, I've been through every game on this collection just to check for any bugs or weird inconsistencies, and I've got to say, pretty much all of the games play well. Now, the one exception, the one issue, is actually in Sonic the Hedgehog. In that game, if you pause and stop moving for a second, you'll get a high-pitched hissing noise, and that's really irritating. So that's the one game in this collection that I found that has a breaking issue. But other than that, I honestly found myself really getting sucked into these games. I didn't own a Genesis as a kid, so I enjoyed checking out the library, or at least the greatest hits of, if you will. Now, what would I say about this at the end of the day? You know what? I'd say, despite the flaws that the hardware does have with it, I'd say that it's an admirable little effort for a Sega Genesis plug-and-play. And if you've got a kid that you want to introduce to these characters in these games, and you don't want to spend the money trying to get a full library, which would cost upwards of $100, $200 to get an actual Sega Genesis and all the other games, I'd say pick it up, give it a shot. It's a neat little thing, and it'll be a fun little gift for a holiday, especially if you're an uncle or an aunt and you're just
finding it, because usually this console can be found in places like CVS or other locations that wouldn't normally have game stuff, but they have gift things. So it is a generally nice piece of equipment, and I would suggest it for young children that you'd like to expose to the Sega Genesis library. And if they really like it, you can get them an actual Genesis, and so they can maybe check out the more obscure titles. So, you know what? I'd say if that's something you're looking for, check it out.